Drive past a combine dealership in late October and count the machines on the lot. Not the tractors, the combines. Class 8 and Class 9 units, the wide ones, the tall ones, the ones built to pull corn and beans out of the ground from Kansas to Ohio. Count how many are sitting there with their headers off and their tires clean and their cabs empty. That lot is supposed to be thin in October. Those machines are supposed to be in fields. The fact that they are not is the whole story. Last year, self-propelled combined retail sales in the United States came in at 3,579 units. That is a decline of 35.6% from the year before. More than a third of the market did not move in 12 months. Farm tractor sales fell too, roughly 9 to 10% by Association of Equipment Manufacturers figures, which is a rough year by any standard. But nothing fell like the combines did, and the machines that did not sell did not vanish. They are sitting on a lot somewhere, and somebody is paying interest on every one of them. The steepest part of that decline landed on Class 8 and Class 9 equipment, the highest horsepower machines in the catalog, and, not coincidentally, the highest margin machines in the catalog. A dealership that moved 6 of those in a year and moved 2 the following year did not lose a third of its unit count. It lost a much larger fraction of its gross profit. That distinction is where the real pressure lives. Here is the hidden process that turns a sales decline into a service problem. Most of the machines sitting on a dealership lot are not owned by the dealership outright. They are carried on floor plan financing, a revolving credit line that charges interest every month a unit does not sell. When 35% of your combine inventory stops moving, the carrying cost on those unsold machines does not pause. It runs every month. And a dealership cannot absorb that quietly for long. So the pressure moves to the segments it can still control. Parts margins get reviewed. Shop labor rates get adjusted. The billing target for the service department shifts from a monthly number to a weekly one and then to a daily one. Nobody sends a memo about it. The pressure arrives the way pressure always does, through a new question asked more frequently by someone one level up. The farmer feels it eventually, not as a policy announcement, but as a travel charge that used to be absorbed, a diagnostic fee that used to disappear, a loaner machine that used to leave on a handshake and now requires a form that someone in another building has to approve. The people at the counter did not become less willing to help. Their authority to help got smaller. The floor plan doesn't care that your combine isn't selling. Here's a specific story that explains the number. A grain farmer running corn and soybeans in the western corn belt watched his combine hit a separator warning during the 3rd week of October, the window he could not give back. He called his dealership. They were running 2 trucks across a 4-county territory, and he was 3rd in the queue. While he waited, he did arithmetic. His current combine was paid off. A new one would carry a retail installment contract at current interest rates, which had moved from near 3% during the pandemic years to north of 8%. He looked at his last 2 years of repair bills and compared them to what 12 months of floor plan carry on a new machine would cost him. Then he called a dealer 2 counties over and bought a new feeder house assembly. He put it on his existing machine, ran the rest of harvest, and filed away the new combine decision for a later year that might pencil differently. He is not a man given to sentiment about old iron. He runs a spreadsheet, and he was not the only one who ran that particular spreadsheet that particular fall. The 3,579 unit number is what it looks like when thousands of operators independently arrive at the same conclusion. Laying out more numbers here clarifies something the headline alone does not. New combine sales fell 35.6%. Used combine inventory at dealerships also fell, down roughly 11 to 12% year over year. Auction values on clean, low-hour, late-model combines firmed rather than softened, recovering 13 to 18% compared to the prior spring in some segments. Planter auction values climbed roughly 7% in a single month at one point and more than 13% year over year. Retail asking prices on late-model row crop tractors moved up approximately 12%. Greg Peterson, the auction analyst known as Machinery Pete, who has tracked used equipment markets for more than 36 years, described the valuation disconnect between new and used as unlike anything in his tracking history. Read all of those figures together, and the picture is not a farm economy that ran out of money. Used lots are thin, not overflowing. Values are firm, not soft. Farmers kept bidding on planters, the tool that puts the crop in the ground. They just stopped agreeing with what a new combine was being priced at. Farmers didn't stop spending. They stopped agreeing with the price. What happens next is the part the headline skips. A dealership carrying floor plan pressure on unsold inventory gets less flexible, not more. Trade-in appraisals grow conservative because every machine a dealer takes in becomes more inventory he has to carry and pay interest on. Loaner equipment during harvest gets rationed because the loaner is now an asset tracked against utilization, not a goodwill gesture made by someone who knows your operation. Discounts that used to be a conversation across a desk become an approval process involving someone who has never seen your ground. The farmer experiences the collapse not as a market statistic, but as a service relationship that is harder to work with than it was 2 harvests ago. There is a second wave worth noting. Auction analysts have been tracking an anticipated run of farm retirement and estate sales that will push significant additional iron into a used market that is already running thin on supply. When that volume arrives, it meets a demand side that has already demonstrated it prefers used iron to new contracts. What that does to price behavior is not settled. Anyone telling you with confidence which direction it moves is speculating. The commercial aviation industry ran a version of this. When major carriers deferred narrow-body orders during demand troughs, the manufacturers absorbed the revenue miss across a large backlog and a diversified customer base. The maintenance, repair, and overhaul shops that supported those carriers had no such buffer. Older airframes staying in service longer than projected inverted their parts and labor planning. The shops physically closest to the machine felt the consequence first and felt it most directly. The manufacturer was insulated by its size and its order pipeline. The service network was not. Farm equipment retail is structured the same way. A manufacturer with a global order book and diversified revenue streams does not feel a 35% combine sales decline in the same quarter the regional dealership does. The dealership feels it the same month. The farmer at the counter feels it the same week. Distance from the machine is protection. Proximity is exposure. 3 things need to be said plainly here, and they cut against the simpler version of this story. First, the 35.6% decline is not a single brand verdict. Every nameplate in the combine market fell. Association of Equipment Manufacturers data covers the full industry. The manufacturer with the largest North American market share absorbed the largest number of unsold units in absolute terms, because share math works that way. But framing this as farmers rejecting one color of paint specifically would not be accurate. Second, The primary driver is macro-financial, not emotional. Row crop margins have been compressed by input costs that stayed elevated and by interest rates that moved sharply. A combine is a finance capital purchase. When the cost of money roughly triples from its recent low, the purchase moves right on the calendar. That mechanism alone accounts for a substantial portion of this decline without any other factor. Third, larger dealer groups are not uniformly worse for the farmers they serve. Some carry deeper parts inventory and more certified technicians than the smaller operations they replace. Farm Equipment Magazine's Big Dealer Report has documented that consolidation trend annually, and the efficiency argument for larger groups is real. It does not eliminate the concern about reduced counter-flexibility, but it deserves to be in the conversation rather than dismissed. The market moved. One cause alone doesn't explain the distance. The combine market did not collapse because farmers lost confidence in farming. It collapsed because farmers got precise about what they were actually purchasing, not horsepower, not the number on the spec sheet. The total cost of owning a machine in an era of high financing rates and long dealer dispatch windows, including every hour of harvest downtime, every diagnostic fee, every month of interest on a contract signed at current rates. When an operator prices all of that in and then prices a reconditioned feeder house on a paid-off machine, the arithmetic changes. The dealer network will feel that precision before the earnings report does.